CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
Colin Hurst, Vice President for Federated Farmers. G'day, Colin. Welcome to the show, mate. Thanks so much for your time.
Are you sitting in the dark, Colin?
Oh, no, he's in his... I reckon he's in his media room.
He's in his bedroom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in my so it was an old bedroom, but the sun's streaming in, so it might be changing. And good morning.
Good morning, Colin. Thank you. It's a pleasure for us to join you today.
Well, hold on. Sun's streaming in. Where are you in Canterbury that's got sun? It's very average here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Canterbury. Well, it's low, foggy sort of cloud, and the sun is streaming through the little gaps.
Right. Very good.
In the clouds, so.
So, hey, Colin, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that Andy poked the bear a bit last week at the New Zealand Agricultural Greenhouse Gas Conference, and
I just made an
observation.
It was just an observation.
Federated Farmers weren't present.
Yeah, what was that, Colin? I mean, it's a pretty major conference here. There's from people from all over the world, and I must say, Feds were conspicuous by their absence. I mean, it is quite a major thing for the New Zealand ag sector.
No, you did right, Andy, and I did notice you made the comment. So, look, I honestly wasn't aware it was on, so I'm not sure. I normally keep my radar out. So I'm the acting president at the moment while Wayne's away over in Europe. He gets back sort of later this week. So, and Wayne is our spokesperson for climate change. So I'd imagine he would have been there if he was there. So that's that one. We do have a team of policy people based in Wellington. So I'm uncertain what's going on there. So I certainly will make a few inquiries with the team, see what.
I wasn't the only one that noticed it, to be fair. Yeah. That's fair. Wayne is away, but certainly with the, I guess you can draw some assumptions, but about it. But you're telling us that it's not a policy of Federated Farmers to not go to a conference, a climate change conference. It doesn't.
No, definitely not. Well, I mean, honestly, it's never crossed my desk on this one. So, look, as I said, I'll just check out with the team what's going on there, Andy.
So, Colin, what's your knowledge of what Federated Farmers are doing and making sure they have a seat at the table when it comes to some pretty bold moves that could be being made in the next 12 months around methane inhibitors and what farmers may likely need to do?
That's a very, very good question, and I'm probably not the best person to answer that. But look, I noticed the science. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got AgriZero, and there's a lot of farmers' money's gone into that, and some of our processes and all that. So there's significant dollars involved. So I would like to think they would come out with something, and potentially there's some good outcomes. It's a win-win for all.
It was interesting. We talked a lot about it because I was there for the 2 days. But what was really interesting was, and I think this is where, for Federated Farmers, but for farmers to understand, it's not just one thing. It's a lot of stuff is stackable, and I think people are focusing quite a lot on maybe some sort of vaccine or some sort of bolus. But there's genetics, there's stocking rates, there's a whole heap of stuff that comes in to these climate emissions reductions.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, I think people are getting a bit hung up, particularly on what's a silver bullet. But that my takeaway was that it's multiple things here that will make the difference.
No, definitely, I agree, Andy. And from my take on this, it's all about being as most efficient as you possibly can. So it's getting more for less. And the simple things that I know about farming, or pastoral farming, we're an arable farm, but it's certainly. The amount of nitrogen you put on needs to reflect in the tonnes produced. So certainly there's sums, and you can work out how you benchmark yourself against with other farms. And the same with a pastoral farm. And certainly dairy farming, if you get your grazing management right, you can increase your milk production per hectare. And that's all I say is one of the key things for being productivity, I guess, at the end of the day. And you're right, it's just one of the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah. Colin, it's an interesting one though, because it's following suit on a number of issues where Federated Farmers haven't got a clear stance on. Is that your role as an organisation to have one set stance or representative of all views? Because when you're starting to get into some hard or nuggety issues like climate change or food security, it's a hard one to be able to guide farmers with the right advice.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're a democratic process, so essentially we're a bottom-up organisation. So we have our National Council that are made up of the provincial presidents around New Zealand. So they will put up a remit to our annual meeting, which is coming up at the end of June. And there will be some remits coming through on these types of things. And then our National Council call in November as well. So we take the steer from there. Obviously, we have the board divided into spokespeople roles. So I'm not exactly over the 100% of the climate change stuff, so I apologise for that. But certainly, we seem to be we are experts in our particular topic. So I'm just talking generally, and if we were on top of every little thing, it would be.
No, 100%, and of course you're still
not,
actively.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, 100%, Colin, and you're still actively farming, and that's a big part of the representation of farmers as well. On that point, from an arable perspective, and the representation of what the government or industry should be doing to improve your prospects, what are you doing?
Well, I think the key thing is being really efficient. The arable sector is obviously, to be most profitable on an arable farm, you need to have a livestock component. So it's making best use of the downtime, you could say, within a crop growing season. So it's normally through the winter months. So this is where quite a lot of arable farms are bringing in trading lambs and that sort of thing. So that will be the the methane part of the story. The rest of the arable situation with crops and things, it's probably the nitrous oxide from the nitrogen that's applied to the crop. So there'll be a component on that, and there's these inhibitors that we can put on the nitrogen. That's the urea that both balance and Ravensdown cells. So there's that type of thing. Being more efficient with your nitrogen, that type of thing. So it's not. We're not as a big a deal as the livestock sector as a single sector, but as I mentioned earlier, it's not quite as simple as that.
Yeah. But it's really tough for you guys in the arable sector right now, obviously, Colin, because of the probably of all the sectors, you guys are doing it the hardest, right? Yeah. So it's really hard for you guys to make any meaningful changes. In fact, the changes that are being made from some of your colleagues, obviously, particularly in Canterbury, is to convert part of that property to dairy, which I guess exacerbates the problem a little bit more. Yeah,
I know. The thing about dairy farming in Canterbury, sure, there was a whole lot of it went on, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. But the way and there is a few new conversions, but the way I see it, those farms are operating a whole lot higher standard than they used to be. I'm actually quite very amazed with what's going on. There's riparian plantings. Everybody is being super efficient, or that I can see. Sure, there's a few rat bags, but generally it won't meet any compliance. And the key thing in Canterbury, if you're increasing the nitrogen losses into the soil, you can't basically. So it has to be converted from a farm that is, potentially in a more of an intensive arable farm or a wintering or livestock farm or finishing farm that has already got losses of nitrogen to the waterways. So essentially, it should be no more losses into the environment. So,
to expand on my question, thank you for answering it with regards to the arable sector in the climate change context, but I was also referring to what a Federated Farmer is able to do to support the arable sector at the moment, just with staying profitable and sustainable into the future as a business unit, really, so that you don't have to be converting to dairy.
So there's there's about 3 strands of work going on at the moment, and so David Burkett's our arable chair for Federated Farmers, so I obviously link in with David quite a lot on this. So obviously the arable farm's been hit with quite poor weather, so there's been we need good sunny days to harvest our crops. So there's quite a large rainfall that came through late January for about 10-15 days. That's right in the peak. So there's been sprouted crops, like the clover sprouted and some of the wheat sprouted. So this basically makes these crops worthless. So, and that's making a lot of the arable farmers question what they're doing. So there's a support package. The government, for a start, have declared a medium scale event. So this, obviously there's no government financial support, but it certainly triggers some deadlines with your tax in some of those things. There's no tax giveaway, basically, but there's the extending timeframes. You can extend some of the payments out because essentially you're going to have a bit of a loss for that period. And Rural Support have put on a Willie Ata came through, and there's been 3 events throughout Canterbury. So my son went along to the one in Timaru just last week, and he said it was really good. A lot of people there, and it was just good to get out and about and meet your fellow farming arable colleagues and sort of sorrow on sorts of things. So that was really good. The other strand of work that David's been working on, we've had some strategy meetings around. There's been 3 of them, one in person in mid-Canterbury. This was 2 weeks ago, and then a couple online, one based for the South Island farmers and one for the maize growers in the North Island, just to try and thrash out what we can possibly do. And some of the things that was directed in those meetings for David to go off and talk to the grain and seed trade, this is grain and seed merchants, to try and develop up some more partnership-related contracts. So the thing we're facing at the moment is fuel prices are through the roof. Fertilisers rising, a lot of our chemicals have been rising, so with basically a pretty static price. So we're getting a real price squeeze coming on us. So it's trying to work through those types of things to try and have a bit more of an even playing field with, how we can adjust those contracts and that type of thing. So at least we're having good, robust discussions on that. The thing I always like to say about the arable sector, it all starts with the seed. And then it flows on to the to the seeds and grains and types of things. So the seeds we grow are mostly for pastures, and that's for the milk and meat to drive our income for the country. And then our grains are mostly in the pig and poultry sector, and then certainly into the bread and biscuit market for human consumption. So of the arable sector, about 70% of all we produce is used domestically. So that's quite a difference from the other sectors. The other 30% is exported. Yeah. And it's about 1 million tonnes of grain is produced by the New Zealand growers. That's 400,000 tonnes of wheat, about 400,000 tonnes of barley, and a couple of 100,000 tonnes of maize. And then there's about another 1 million tonnes imported. So there's still significant opportunities there. I've lost my video.
Yeah, we've lost your video. That's all right. They've been looking at us.
We could hear you the whole time, Colin, though.
You're trying to kick me off.
No.
No, not at all. But thank you for highlighting that. And, I mean, this is the thing I'd like to see in our primary sector is some, overdue respect for the underpinning the arable sector have of the whole primary sector. I think we need to constantly be reminded of that.
Well, yeah, I agree, and it's a tough old road for some of our farmers, arable farmers, and it's probably a little bit as simple as this: the international markets are really low for the grain and seed crops at the moment, and essentially, as I said earlier, we're import substitution. So if it's not grown domestically, it has to be imported, and sort of tries to match up by that. But I think there's a component of food security rocking in here as well. So, and I think we need to be, definitely the government have reached out, and certainly it was 3 weeks ago we had 3 ministers turn up to have a good, robust discussion with David Burkett up at his place. So there was Mark Patterson, Mike Buttrick, and Nicola Grigg. So that was pretty grunty effort from the government to reach out to see how they can help.
Sorry, Todd said to me when I spoke to him at the climate change.
This is Honourable Todd McClay.
Todd McClay, the minister, said that he had tasked Mike Buttrick to work with the arable sector as part of his new role as an Associate Ag Minister. So they're aware of it and they're taking it seriously.
Well, I'm really chuffed that Minister McClay has given Mike Buttrick, and I presume it's a delegation to arable.
Yes.
Because we were sort of thinking that was going to happen. So we're really quite excited that the government has taken this really seriously by doing that. So,
Yeah,
so
actually, the minister sounds quite concerned. Like genuinely concerned.
I mean,
when I talk to him.
It is of genuine concern, and I've got my thoughts. If they don't jump on the politics of food security and get their head around the impact on this, the left will eat them for breakfast. Hey, Colin, thank you very much for joining us. Colin Hurst, Vice President of Federated Farmers.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.